Cynosure Ring ran on a cycle that mimicked day and night, but the stars beyond its windows never changed. They burned cold and distant, while inside, a war was planned. In a secure chamber, a holographic Earth turned slowly above a crystal table. Lines of data orbited it: traffic flows, power grids, communication networks, and language maps. Logister Vanek of the Karkhaal Dominion stood with his hands folded behind his back, skull filaments pulsing as he navigated streams of information. Confidence radiated from every movement. "Pre-jump civilization," he said, in his clipped, precise voice. Technology clustered in narrow bands, global politics fragmented, defense coordination incomplete, high reliance on scheduled routines. Psychological modeling indicates enhanced vulnerability to simultaneous disruption of daily patterns. He lifted a hand and shifted overlays. At several coastal megacities, the data spiked. These regions experience peak congestion and economic velocity between 7 a.m. and 10 a.m. local, he continued. If we strike during that window, they will be fully occupied with commutes, meetings, and operational ramp-up. Their leaders will be present in their centers of power but not yet fully alert. The timing multiplies confusion. Over-Marshal Reluk Sar watched from the other side of the table, armored arms folded. Numerous campaign sigils glowed along his carapace, each one a conquered world. His eyes, a hard yellow, showed no doubt. "Your models have accounted for their inconsistency?" he asked. "We have integrated cultural data, historical disasters, and social behavior across multiple languages," Vanek replied. "Yes, they are volatile, but within bounds. They respond to shocks in statistically predictable stages. We have scheduled Operation Soft Dawn accordingly." A rustle from the gallery drew their attention. Archivist Marin Jax of the Salathi Concord lifted a frilled hand. Voice translated into gentle chords. "Your analysis treats them as if they were one of you," Marin Jax observed. "Predictable once you have enough past data. Yet our independent review of their media suggests they admire unpredictability, improvisation. They tell many stories in which someone breaks the expected pattern and is celebrated for it." Vanish inclined his head politely. "We have accounted for outliers. The Dominion has pacified many species that thought themselves singular." Reluk tapped a claw against Earth's glowing surface. "We demonstrate our strength. We gain a rich new world, and we warn our rivals," he said. "You strike on their workday morning, as planned. You will have your proof that models beat myths." Outside the station, folded space currents rippled, invisible to the human eyes that would soon look up and wonder why their sky had changed. Far below, on that turning planet, an alarm buzzed beside a cheap bed. Miguel Soriano swatted at it and groaned. It was just after 7 a.m. in a coastal city. Light slipped between high-rises and painted stripes on apartment walls. Bathroom fans hummed. Coffee machines gurgled. People cursed at half-charged phones. Miguel, dressed on autopilot, grabbed a stale protein bar and hurried out. In the metro car, bodies pressed around him. Music leaked from headphones. A child asked too many questions at once. The announcer mispronounced station names as always. He scrolled through work messages from Skyline Tower. A request for a quick revision to a presentation. A reminder about a 9 a.m. call. A complaint about a data source. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he wondered if the elevator would be working today, then decided that was the most important question of his morning. On the other side of the world, under a mountain, Director Nikola Voronin stared at a different set of numbers. Atlas Node 1's main operations floor hummed quietly. Rows of operators monitored global feeds, weather anomalies, shipping routes, political crises, power grids. Emergency drills flickered in the corner of Nikola's awareness while he chewed thoughtfully on a pen cap. "Orbital status?" he asked. "Some minor desyncs in civilian satellites," an analyst replied. "Could be firmware updates. A few commercial comms providers reporting glitches." Nikola frowned. His instincts, honed on cascading failures, did not like unexplained coincidences. "Tag any anomaly clusters across domains," he said. "If orbital hiccups line up with ground-side issues, I want an alert." He trusted experience more than any single readout. Systems failed all the time. They only kept him up at night when the failures rhymed. Up on the moon, in the lunar research array, Lena Moriyama slapped a diagnostics panel that refused to cooperate. "Don't do this to me on a Monday," she muttered. The mass driver loomed beyond the viewport, a giant coil along the station's exterior, used to fling mining payloads into orbit. It hummed faintly when healthy. Today it was sulking. The console blinked through several frozen screens, then through an error. Lena sighed, popped open a maintenance panel, and began bypassing safeties by hand. The machine was old and temperamental, but she understood it. She could coax it into behaving. She had no warning when the universe decided to give her something very different to fix. At 8:23 a.m. in Miguel's city, the lights in Skyline Tower flickered once, then steadied. The office air felt weirdly charged. Someone laughed about the building's ancient wiring. At 8:24 a.m., multiple observational satellites went blind. At 8:25 a.m., everything changed. The first Karkhaal ships did not arrive with fire and thunder, not at ground level. They slid into near-Earth space as distortions, patches of missing background radiation, radio bands that went oddly quiet. Then their jamming systems lit up, and entire chunks of the electromagnetic spectrum howled. In Skyline Tower, Miguel's screen froze. The cursor stopped mid-blink. He tried to type and got nothing. The overhead lights dimmed. The building's internal network dropped, reconnected, dropped again. "Power surge?" someone called. Then the sky growled. He and half the floor rushed to the windows. Outside, something like a fleet of knife-edged shadows moved between clouds. They were wrong. Too big, too angular, too smooth. They did not bank like any aircraft he knew. Their thrusters burned with a sickly, contained glow that made his eyes water. One of them passed so close to the neighboring tower that glass trembled. People screamed. Phone cameras shot shaky footage that would never upload. On the Spear of Varkesh, Relic Sar watched icons descend across a stylized map of Earth's atmosphere. "Jamming field stable," an officer reported. "Primary defense nodes degraded." "Ground infrastructure?" Relic asked. "Civilian communications collapsing," Vanek replied. Eyes bright. "Traffic immobilized in targeted metroplexes. Financial systems in failsafe. Panic indicators rising on public channels where those still exist. Phase 1 complete." He gestured, and segments of the holographic planet lit with Karkhaal colors. Landing zones, interdiction webs, Gloam Spore deployment paths, queued for later use. "Proceed with soft dawn," Relic said. "Keep structure damage limited. This world will be more useful intact." Below, human lives tumbled out of their routines. In Atlas Node 1, consoles whited out. Maps vanished. Audio feeds became a slurry of hiss and broken syllables. "Broad-spectrum jamming," someone snapped. "Not natural. Not any known pattern." Nikola's voice cut through. "Kill high-bandwidth dependency," he ordered. "We go old school. Hardened channels only. Text, voice, anything that lives on buried fiber or line-of-sight radio. Bring backups online." Technicians moved fast. Systems they had drilled on but never expected to use for real flickered awake. Cold War-era lines, low-Earth satellites with narrow, stubborn bands, encrypted HF radios. "Confirm off-world," Nikola said. His mind wanted to reject that phrasing, but the evidence was piling up. A shaky video feed, patched through from a surviving news helicopter, showed alien craft angling downward toward a city. Another feed, truncated, carried a single fragment from a military radar operator. "Contacts. No transponder. Accelerating. That's impossible. Unidentified off-world assault in progress," Nikola said flatly. Saying it made it real. He triggered a pre-written but never truly believed broadcast. Every still-functioning emergency channel on the planet received the same text. "Global attack underway. Unknown origin. Activate civil defense. Stay offline unless necessary. Await local instructions." In a government car stranded on an elevated road, Yusef Halden read that message and looked up at the sky. Alien silhouettes moved over the bay. Cars stood bumper to bumper. People had climbed out, pointing and filming. Sirens wailed on distant streets that led nowhere fast. His driver gripped the wheel. "Orders, sir?" Yusef's logistical mind spun. The highway was clogged, yes, but also dense with heavy vehicles. Underpasses and exits were clogged too. Bridges, tunnels, interchanges, all at near standstill. Every disaster he had worked on had taught him one lesson. When a system jams, clearing it can take more time than you have. He opened an emergency line on his tablet, forced it through on a resilient but painfully slow channel. "This is Yusef Halden, National Logistics," he said. "Recommendation: do not try to fully clear major highways. We cannot. Instead, repurpose the congestion, lock in key choke points, leave vehicles where they are to block overpasses and access ramps into city cores, free only corridors to hospitals, depots, and runways. Tell police and traffic control to make the jams worse in specific places." Static swallowed some of his words, but not all. Somewhere in a traffic command center, an exhausted manager heard "weaponized traffic" and stared at the wall of red lines on her screens. It was insane. It was also the only thing they could do with what they had. Orders went out. Officers on foot moved through gridlock, telling drivers to abandon cars in patterns. Forklifts at docks pushed containers into new, chaotic stacks that created mazes. Rail controllers halted freight trains across key junctions instead of clearing them. From orbit, Vanek saw a rise in transportation collapse metrics and smiled. "Their networks are imploding," he told Relic. "They are choking themselves." He could not see the intent behind the chaos. His models treated gridlock as noise, not as a shaped field. In Skyline Tower, noise took the form of screaming and pounding feet. After the first pass of alien ships, alarms howled. The elevators went dead. Stairwells filled. Miguel found himself herding people down concrete steps lit by dim emergency strips. Aanya, at his side, barked orders to keep movement one way and steady. "No one pushes," she shouted. "If you fall, we pick you up. Don't stop for your stuff." Overhead, something struck the building with a grinding crash. Dust drifted from the ceiling. Debris rattled down the shaft. They did not know it yet, but a Karkhaal drone, nicked by a hasty missile from a local base, had spun out of control and slammed into an unfinished floor. It gouged a channel through drywall, bounced off a structural beam, and died in a shower of sparks and twisting metal. Later, when Miguel and Aanya pushed back up to look for water and supplies, they found the wreckage. An alien hull cracked open like a shell, exposing weird internal organs of metal and glass. The room reeked of burned insulation and something more acrid. "Stay back," a building security guard warned, pistol trembling in his hand. Aanya crouched anyway, studying the wreck. It was terrifying, but also familiar in its way. Cables snaked between modules. Panels had seams. Black boxes sat in shock mounts. "This thing was talking to something," she said quietly. Miguel swallowed. "You want to listen?" "If we can," she murmured.
"We're network people. That's what we do."
While gunfire echoed faintly from upper floors, they dragged half of the smashed drone into a windowless conference room using table legs as levers. They dug out a forgotten box of old cables and adapters. Aanya stripped insulation from a scorched connector with a utility knife and spliced it to a scavenged debug cable. "Local only," she told the guard.
"This laptop is not touching anything else. Worst case, the alien box fries it."
The laptop screen showed a stream of meaningless voltage fluctuations at first. Then Miguel saw patterns in the chaos, rising and falling at regular intervals. "It's pinging something," he said. "Or listening." On the other side of the planet, in a messy apartment humming with network gear, Dalia Kovrin stared at her screens in disbelief as global routes went dark. She had braced for outages. This was different. Sections of the internet did not just fall silent. They were smothered. Bandwidth collapsed in thick swaths. High-capacity nodes winked out like someone had thrown a blanket over the sky. Then government headers she had never seen in active use flashed on her console, marking the situation for what it was. "Off-world assault," she read aloud. "Of all the days." Her first instinct was to panic. The second, stronger one, was offended professionalism. Whoever was doing this had crashed her networks in entirely unapproved ways. She probed for anything that still worked and found scraps: stubborn satellites on odd orbits, long-range radio, old undersea cables patched through obsolete routers. Amateur radio chatter exploded in some bands. "Fine," she muttered. "We go low and slow." When a strange, raw data pattern tripped one of her improvised monitors, she almost ignored it. Then she saw its shape. Almost, but not quite, like something she understood. She traced it and found at the other end of a fragile mesh link a shaky voice. "This is Skyline Tower," Miguel said. "We've got a piece of their hardware wired to a laptop. It's chattering. Can you see this?" A crude copy of his signal feed crawled onto her screen. Dalia's fatigue evaporated. "You plugged an alien drone into office electronics," she said, half horrified, half impressed. "Of course you did." She watched the fluctuations, analyzed timing, and realized this was a tiny branch of something much larger, a tactical coordination web that the Karkhaal called Null Crown. "We can't break it," she said, "but maybe we can make it stutter." She wrote a small program that injected minute timing perturbations into the outgoing pulses, then let the alien node relay them upward. If she did it right, Karkhaal systems would attribute the noise to local conditions. If she overdid it, they would notice and shut the node down. She probed slowly, feeling for the edges of acceptable error. Above Earth, Null Crown began to receive slightly contradictory impressions from one tiny sector. Not enough to cause visible problems, yet, but a hairline fracture had formed. On the moon, the lunar research array buzzed with hurried voices. "We've lost most of our satellites," someone said, "but we can still see one big ship clearly." The spear of Arkesh's presence loomed on their instruments. Mass, emissions, position, holding over a cluster of Earth's defense infrastructure. Lena floated before a crude composite of its orbital track, chewing her lip. "Can we hit it?" she asked. "With what?" the station commander said. "We have a rock-flinger." "A very good rock-flinger," Lena retorted. "It doesn't know what it's firing at. It just knows vectors. Give it vectors. They could not steer a projectile in flight, but they could fire a stream into a predicted path. With jamming worsening, their data was thin, but not non-existent." Lena sketched quick calculations on a pad, mind racing through orbital mechanics. "We don't need a perfect hit," she said. "We just need to clip something important. Knock out part of their jamming." The station commander stared at the numbers, then at her. "Burn the driver if you have to," he said. "We won't need it if we're dead." They overrode safeties. Capacitors thrummed. Warning lights blinked angrily. The mass driver spat a cluster of dense slugs into space. Minutes stretched. Ground crews on Earth fought aliens in streets and stairwells, while above, metal grains arced invisibly. On the spear of Varkesh, a vibration rattled the hull. "Unexpected debris impact," an officer reported. "Shield loss in Sector Delta. Jamming nodes offline in that arc. Thruster housing compromised." "How?" Relux snapped. "We cleared this orbit." "Unpredicted micrometeoroids, perhaps," Vanek said tightly, even as the odds did not satisfy him. Below, in that jamming shadow, some satellites flickered back to life. Ground radars regained partial sky. Data trickled into Atlas Node 1 that had been fully cut off moments ago. Nikola pounced on it. "We have eyes again in certain windows," he said. "Prioritize where we can see their big ship. That's where we hurt them." Crisis brought old habits to the surface all over Earth. Radio enthusiasts dusted off gear. Fire departments activated backup links. Neighborhood associations convened meetings in basements by flashlight. Hospitals dug into stockpiles and rewrote intake procedures on the fly. No one called it the Global Mesh Initiative then, but that was what it became, a patchwork of stubborn channels that refused to die. Dalia's tools rode those channels. She pushed out small programs that turned random laptops and routers into mesh nodes. She encouraged ham operators to relay short text updates from one region to another. Green dots crept across Nikola's maps as improvised nodes checked in from towns, ships at sea, and even a hilltop farm where a solar-powered relay still functioned. "This is our backbone," he said. "Not the shiny stuff. They used it to share more than positions. They shared knowledge. Soon after the Karkhaal deployed Gloam Spore, humans started collapsing in certain patterns. People reported sudden exhaustion, foggy thoughts, heavy limbs. The alien bioweapon drifted through building vents and open streets, designed to dampen coordination by dulling nervous systems. Doctors and researchers, connected by the mesh, began swapping lab results and field observations in real time. Someone in one city noticed that older buildings with leaky windows and odd ventilation had fewer severe cases. Someone else reported that certain improvised filters helped. Lab techs in cobbled-together facilities dosed rats with captured spores and different household chemicals. Within hours, a picture emerged. Certain cheap materials, common drugs, and ventilation tricks weakened the agent considerably. Dalia bundled those findings into a short, brutal set of instructions. Reverse ventilation where possible. Block these intake types. Use these filters. Administer this drug combination if available to key personnel. Printed pages went up in hospitals. Radio announcers read the advice on loops. Volunteers shouted it in stairwells. On the Spear, reports filtered in. Gloam Spore efficacy reduced. Adversary deploying countermeasures. Resistance activity not significantly dampened. Vanek felt something unfamiliar. Unease. They should not be this fast, he said softly. Reluk was in no mood for nuance. If the gas does not break them, then we will, he snarled. He authorized harsher measures. Orbital intimidation strikes. More aggressive deployment. More pressure. The pattern shifted. It was not the pattern he had planned. On Cynosure Ring, Envoy Karul watched with calculating eyes as the clean, linear conquest the Karkhaal had promised turned messier. They opened a private channel through drawn systems to Earth, and offered what traders always offered: information. For a price. Hajin Ramani, operating from a partially shielded diplomatic facility, answered. Her secure channel to the outside was narrow, but she recognized an opportunity. You represent a mercantile power, she typed, relying on strained translation. You know your clients are losing control. What do you want? Future trade rights and non-aggression toward drawn interests, Kirul replied. In exchange, I provide Karkhaal fleet layouts, internal political pressures, and orbital data that your lunar facility can use. Hajin weighed risk and necessity. Then she agreed, carefully, on terms that left room for later argument. The data arrived, jagged and alien, but usable. It confirmed what Earth sensors were only partially seeing: the placement of the spear, the placement of relays, and something more important, limits on how much loss the Dominion could endure here before its own rivals pounced. Armed with that, Hajin reached out through another clandestine channel to the Salathi. Marin Jax listened, fascinated, as she proposed a principle. Your historians know cycles, she wrote. Empires rise and overreach. We are at the beginning of something. If you help us now, we can push for a framework that makes what's happening to us harder to repeat on the next world. She described what would become the Earthline Accord, a line that declared attacking worlds like Earth without provocation unacceptable to the broader community. Marin Jax liked the idea. Kirul liked the stability it promised trade. Even some of the more cautious powers saw advantage in curbing the Dominion a little, but it all depended on one thing. Earth had to make this attack costly enough that the Karkhaal could not spin their withdrawal as a clean victory. In Horizon Bunker, Nikola, Yusef, Dalia, and General Igor Zelinsky met by voice and low-res video across lagging mesh links. We can't just push back randomly, Igor said. We have to make a point, hurt their flagship, cripple their coordination. Yusef overlaid human time zones and Karkhaal patterns on a shared map. They built their op schedule around our routines, he said. You can see it. They're jamming peaks when our cities are busiest. Their drone rotations sync with our usual rush hour lulls. He highlighted gaps. These are their low alert windows, times they think we'll be too tired to fight hard. Nikola saw the invitation. We fake exhaustion, he said. We make them lower their guard, right when we're coiling. Dalia nodded. I can push null crown noise harder during those windows, make their systems trust their schedule even more. If we then hit them off curve, Their own expectations will slow their response. Igor named their counteroffensive Operation Monday Steel. They chose this morning because they thought we'd be soft, he said. We show them what we're really made of at our most tired. The plan filtered through the mesh in the only way it could, distilled into simple signals, adapted locally. In Skyline Tower, Miguel and Aanya played their part by doing almost nothing visible. They dialed down lights. They arranged people in the ways Dalia's analysis suggested Karkhaal sensors associated with pacified, small clusters, low movement, heat signatures clustered and still. They hid any signs of preparation behind walls and under floors. When Karkhaal patrols stalked through, their helmets registered lethargic, dampened humans, and no obvious threats. They moved on to more active sectors. Similar scenes unfolded across districts in dozens of cities. Resistance that had been noisy and scattered went quiet in certain hours. From orbit, Vanek watched metrics trend in a direction that matched his early-stage surrender curves. You see, he told Relic, their activity decays. They are entering acceptance. Reluk, greedy for a decisive image, ordered the spear to lower orbit slightly and ready a planetary broadcast. He wanted humans to see his face when he announced the new order. That change in orbit put his flagship exactly where Lena Moriyama needed it. The second mass driver salvo from the lunar research array rode on data sharpened by Kiruul's stolen telemetry. Lena and her crew pushed the ancient machine past its design limits. Warning, klaxons drowned out her own heartbeat. Rocks flew. This time, several struck vital systems. A cluster tore through a belt of jamming nodes. Another cracked an engine housing. The spear lurched dramatically, forced to fire emergency thrusters and climb to avoid a dangerous decay. On the bridge, officers crashed into rails. Displays flared red. Reluk tasted humiliation through the tang of burning insulation. Jamming field degraded another 22%. Someone gasped. What is hitting us? Reluk snarled. Ground-based mass propulsion, came the answer. Crude, but effective. We misjudged their use of their moon. With the flagship backing off and its field weakened, more of Earth's systems blinked back. Ground-based batteries seized the opening. Guided by patched-together radar, Igor's teams launched missiles at orbital relays and key ships. They hit enough of them to open ragged holes in null crown coverage. In that turbulence, Dalia made her move. Her taps on the Skyline Tower drone had grown more intrusive. She had recorded hours of null crown timing and structure. Now she synthesized human coordination spikes into fake commands and jammed them into the alien network's edge. The effect cascaded. Aerial units received contradictory priority signals. Some ground squads were told simultaneously to advance and retreat. Auto-resolve routines kicked in, but there were too many conflicts at once. It was like overloading a mind with too many urgent thoughts. Karkhaal units reporting incompatible orders, one of Reluk's sub-commanders said. Some have defaulted to defensive positions. Others are idle. They await clarification. Reluk demanded manual overrides. On the ground, his officers tried, but they too depended on feeds that were no longer clean. At that moment, Nikola unleashed the final component of Operation Monday Steel, a broadcast aimed as much at the galaxy as at his own people. His image appeared on any working screen he could reach. The feed was grainy. His face was lined and tired. This is Director Nikola Voronin, he said. By now you know what is happening. This is not a drill. We are under attack by an empire that thought our routines were weakness. He did not waste words on flattery or fear. They chose this morning because they thought we would be too distracted and divided to fight, he continued. They misread what busy means to us. We deal with too much, all at once, every day. That is how we live. You are proving that now. He outlined, deliberately, the cost the Karkhaal were paying. The hits recorded on their flagship. The breakdowns in their coordination. Whoever is listening up there, he added, glancing briefly toward the ceiling, as if the stars lay just beyond it. Understand this. We are not asking to be left alone forever. We are demanding that any contact with us, now or with others like us later, happens with consent, not a gun to our heads. If you push us, we will make every step you take into a problem you cannot solve." His words traveled along the same jamming bands the Karkhaal had thrown over the planet. Some of their own receivers picked them up. So did relays on Cynosure Ring. Delegates from multiple powers watched, recalculating. On Varkesh Prime, high-ranking Karkhaal officials saw the same reports Relic did: casualty figures, resource consumption, and, increasingly, murmurs from other empires about the Dominion's vulnerability. "This operation is eroding our deterrent image," one political overseer said. "Our rivals smell blood. The prey should have broken days ago," another complained. "It has not," the first replied. "We must adapt or risk more than one world." A terse command left the capital. Reassess. Limit further losses. Prepare for negotiated drawdown. On the spear of Varkish, the order landed like a lead weight in Relic's hands. "They want you to leash me," he told Vanek bitterly. He sent the withdrawal instructions anyway. Dropships altered vectors. Ground units received extraction commands. Jamming leveled off, then began to ease. On Earth, the immediacy of battle gave way to a wary, buzzing quiet. In some places, Karkhaal soldiers withdrew under fire. In others, they retreated through streets lined with people who could not yet believe what they were seeing. Miguel and Aanya stood on the roof of Skyline Tower, staring up at the thinning lattice of alien craft. The city was scarred, plumes of smoke, scorched concrete, gaping holes where buildings had been, but it still stood. "We made it through this," Miguel said, voice hoarse. "We made it through the first round," Aanya corrected softly. "There will be others, but now everyone knows we hit back." At Cynosure Ring, in the chamber where Earth had first been presented as an easy mark, delegates now argued over the text of the new accord. Hajin Rahmani, patched in via a secure channel, listened as some empires tried to water down protections. "Without enforcement," she said calmly, "this is just decoration. If you want us to sign anything, it must mean something." Marin Jax, speaking from their historical authority, supported her. "Our records show that unconstrained expansion breeds catastrophe," they said. "We have a chance to insert a principle now. We should take it." Envoy Karul, who had profited from this conflict already, saw greater profits in a universe where emergent civilizations were potential customers, not cattle. In the end, enough of them agreed to a document that bound them. However, imperfectly, it did not end wars. It did not guarantee kindness. It did, however, make what had been attempted against Earth explicitly unacceptable going forward in a way that could be cited, debated, and enforced. Somewhere in its language, the boundary around worlds like Earth was given a name that would, in time, become common: an Earthline. On Earth, people did not yet care what diplomats were signing above their heads. They cared about fires, injuries, food, water, and missing names. In Atlas Node 1, Nikola walked through a room littered with empty coffee cups and discarded snack wrappers, past operators whose eyes were red from too little sleep and too much adrenaline. He knew many victories they had won would never be on any medal. He received confirmation of the Accord's existence almost as an afterthought, in a thin-band message that also carried casualty estimates and lists of critical infrastructure damage. He nodded once, weary. "It's a start," he said. On the moon, Lena Moriyama drifted against a viewport, staring at a faint point of light where the spear of Varkesh now held a distant, non-threatening orbit. The mass driver's barrel, twisted and burned out, lay silent. "We turned a mining toy into a cannon," she said. "Next time, maybe we don't have to improvise." In Skyline Tower, repair crews and volunteers cleared corridors that had been battlefields not long before. Someone had chalked markings on one wall for emergency assembly points. Those markings would remain long after the scorch marks faded. Miguel helped move a desk, then paused to look out over the city. Traffic had returned, but now every elevated road had emergency turnaround plans. Every office building he could see had generator housings where there had been none. "This was supposed to be a normal Monday," he said. Aanya snorted. "When have our Mondays ever been normal? The whole reason they chose this day is because they thought we're weak when we're busy." We showed them what busy really means. In a hospital, a tired nurse taped a copy of the counter-Gloam instructions to a locker, not as a current protocol, but as a memento. Around it, new posters went up with alien silhouette recognition, emergency mesh access codes, and contact phrases in 3 extraterrestrial languages. Humanity's routines resumed, but they were different. The world had been split open and stitched differently. Above, embassies began to plan visits, trade missions started drafting proposals, security agencies worried about the next threat. Scientists dreamed about new drives, better telescopes, sturdier networks. Life, on 1,000 small scales, went on. The Karkhaal Dominion, licking its wounds, reworked its doctrines, and amended its models to include a new, uncomfortable variable, a species that treated catastrophe like yet another item on an overcrowded calendar, and responded not with orderly collapse, but with a flurry of stubborn, inventive resistance. Around many conference tables, on many worlds, the same conclusion appeared in different languages. Humanity had arrived. Not neatly, not quietly, but unmistakably. And somewhere on Earth, as alarms set for the next morning blinked to life on bedside tables, the planet turned toward another workday, not softer or harder than the one before, but carrying a new, invisible weight. The gaze of a watching galaxy, and the knowledge that, whatever came next, they had already survived being under its worst assumptions.